Condos. Vancouver has lots of them, but not every condo was made equally. And I don't mean the horrors that was Vancouver's leaky condo prices. I'm talking about co-ops. You see, back in the 1930s or so, Vancouver didn't have the same kind of legislation that it has now for multi-unit residential buildings. The Strata Legislation Act was still a long way off, and single-family homes were just not as practical as they once were. Enter the co-op, a type of housing where residents collectively own and manage a property rather than any outside landlord. Now, most of us have probably heard of rental co-ops, usually associated with a below market level rent and found in some of the most sought after communities across the whole lower mainland. Today though, we are looking at its lesser known brother, the equity co-op. An equity co-op is a specific housing model.
Equity co-ops are where residents have come together and they have decided to purchase the land by themselves or be funded by the government.
Now, unlike a traditional home purchase, you don't own the unit itself, but instead a share of the cooperative corporation, which can appreciate in value, allowing members to build equity.
Co-ops would like to have the residents have a larger equity component rather than as opposed to a strata unit.
Thus the name, equity co-op. These buildings, at least in Vancouver, are ideally placed, with a large cluster on Vancouver's West End. One of the most interesting facets of equity co-op, though, is the approval process. To even be allowed to purchase a share into an equity co-op, you need approval from the sitting board of the building, and that can come with some restrictions. So, you have much older buildings, ideally placed, with a vibe check before you can even buy into one. Why would anyone want one of these things? Well, that, my friend, is what we're going to find out. Hey, my man.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm so good. How are you?
Good to see you. Excited to learn all about co-ops today?
Okay, let's do it.
Yeah, cool. So my first question for you is, what is the reason that we have so many of these equity co-ops in this part of the city?
So this is merely the history and geography of Vancouver. So the first settlement was in the West End. Most of the railroad families lived in the West End. Most of the first development after the Second World War was in the West End. So that's why you see most of these buildings in the West End, because it is the oldest neighborhood in Vancouver.
I assume, based on how we're talking about these co-ops, there's probably tenants who've been here for 30, 40, 50 years.
Oh yeah. Equity co-ops will have a membership process.
Okay.
So do affordable co-ops, so do market co-ops. So that's one thing in common through all of these co-ops, that they're all governed by the Cooperative Property Act. Even if you have the money and funds, you sort of have to plead your case to get into a co-op.
I know we're going to see one, right?
Let's do it.
So it's Ocean Tower? Vancouver is a relatively young city, with new buildings sprouting up left, right and centre. And the newer the build, the more guarantees that you're going to get a place with all the latest bells and whistles. Which begs the question, with the equity co-ops downtown being around so long, why would anyone go for one of these homes over something like the Butterfly building on Nelson and Thurlow? Which, as I soon found out, may not be as straightforward as buying a conventional stratified condo unit.
Pets are mostly not allowed in most of the co-ops in the West End. There are some exceptions, and you can't rent these apartments out. Ocean Towers is amazing, the location is amazing, right? You're living at the epicenter of the city, and you have to accept some noise. Most residents that live here become a part of it.
It really is then focused on really what kind of lifestyle the home seeker wants.
The lifestyle, and there are some sneaky pros. So you'll see some of the people that live in here, although there is a great tight-knit community, some people are buying these as pied-à-terres.
If I wanted to buy into this co-op, what would that process look like from hiring your good services to you handing me the keys?
Yeah, so it's very similar to a strata. So you find the listing on the MLS or mywestend.ca or REW. And from there, once we see it and we like it, you like all the documents, then you put in an offer just as you would for any place. But that offer would be contingent to board's approval.
Step 1. Find an equity co-op currently listed on rew.ca. Step 2. Get mortgage approval from a lender, like Vancity.
The buying process itself for a co-op looks very similar to purchasing a condo. The financing portion of it also looks fairly similar, depending on the co-op building itself. I'm Vancity Senior Mortgage Development Manager, and I'm also our retail lead of strategic housing initiatives, which means that I also manage our equity co-op portfolio. The only difference with a co-op is that there's a higher equity requirement, so you need a larger down payment. Co-ops require 35% down payment. So that's kind of where the line in the sand is currently drawn.
Is there any sense or reason to that, or is it kind of the way it's always done, or is that an implication of a higher risk in this type of product type or housing type?
You don't necessarily have the ability to mortgage a co-op because there aren't individual land titles. The company itself owns the entire property, and each owner is issued a share certificate that's commensurate with their share of the building. So there isn't so a financial institution can't place a mortgage on the co-op, so we actually take the share certificate as security. The other part of it is the co-ops themselves. Co-ops do operate differently than a strata unit, meaning that co-ops, the board, have to acknowledge the financing that you're taking on. As far as financing options that exist for co-ops, yes, we are one of the only, if not the only, that are currently financing equity co-ops.
However, that is not all. Step 3 is the real reason this housing type is so unique and interesting, and that is that you also have to have an interview with a panel of your potential neighbours to see if you'd be a good fit for the building you're interested in becoming a part of.
So the due diligence phase can take a bit longer. You also have to provide references. Depending on the co-op, you need to get a letter from the bank. But once the subjects are removed, you need about 2 to 3 weeks at a minimum to close with the lawyers.
Ocean towers and views aside, I know I needed to speak with someone who has recently moved into a co-op to hear firsthand what they thought of the lifestyle they'd bought into.
I've always been interested in this type of living. I think that people in this building in particular are constantly out walking. Yeah. They go swimming, like there's a whole group of people that go swimming early in the morning. And they say, oh, where are you going, and what are you doing, and all that kind of stuff. Not in a nosy way. Yeah. Just in a friendly way.
In this community, it's definitely not a shy place.
No. I've always wanted to live by the ocean,
Donna and Eve recently moved into this unit after wanting to make a trip back to Vancouver from Eastern Canada. And so far, they seem to be loving all facets of co-op living. Is there any trepidation about any of the rules that are in place at the moment?
We knew, kids, pets, non-smoking building, which I think is pretty standard these days anyway. So
it's always the same predicate that what we want is a place that's relatively quiet, not too noisy.
Well, we've done our babies and dogs.
Yeah, exactly.
You see, so that we've done all that.
I have a phrase that I live in the grey. There is nothing black and white in my life. Yeah. Rules are very, we'll figure it out.
So somewhere along the spectrum, there's room I think, for negotiation. Yeah. But the surprise was, I'm just with my peers. It will flow naturally because I feel I'm with my peeps here. That was a pleasant surprise.
In Vancouver, real estate is it's an industry. You buy, you stay a couple of years, you flip. That's not the impression I'm getting here. This is a home. Mm-hmm. This is a community you folks are building.
People who move in here don't seem to leave.
Co-ops, are they a byproduct of a less civilized era, or a potential future solution to Vancouver's housing market and the often less talked about proposed loneliness epidemic that people claim haunts this city. From my point of view, the lower price of entry, with the built-in community and some of the best locations that this city has to offer, is pretty enticing. But I can't see myself having the upfront cash to ever get into one. Also, I'm a pretty rebellious person in general, and I don't know how I'd feel about some of the restrictions that these buildings have in place. It might not last very long. That being said, if you are interested in the equity co-op life, I do strongly encourage you to reach out to Mustafa and Van City to get a better sense of what options are available to you right now. Because while this housing type isn't looking like it's getting any more, what we already got doesn't seem to be going anywhere anytime soon.